your Commodore. Okay, so in Backdrop Designer, you've got a whole bunch of slots here that you can bring an image into, and I'm just gonna pop one in that I found earlier. So it will accept JPEG, PNG and GIF. And this is just a favorite robot of mine from my childhood called ED209. I'm just going to scale it up until it doesn't scale up anymore, and basically turn off force scale and scale it up even more. Let's get it to fit in the view a bit like that there. Right, now I just want to slide this pixel mode to the right, and we're going to get the Commodore palette and pixel ratio. Also the CRT effect. I'm just going to switch that off just for clarity of the video. And now I'm just going to mess around with the pixel blend. So the pixel blending just changes the range of colors a bit. I quite like the fourth one. It is a bit darker, but if you push up this range a bit more, you can get a little bit extra from it. Also the image can also help get a certain look that you might want. I'm just going to stick with this third one here. So that's the default to the left. We've got that 1, 2, yeah, I quite like this one. And I'm just going to come back the way just to see what I'm missing. Yeah, I'm just going to stick with that fourth one and change the range until none of the background shows. Pretty cool. So now that I've got that, I can basically just save the image out. So I'll just press B to turn off the brush, and if I want, I can do some extra stuff to that brush plot, either by changing the layer contents using the preview, which is kind of a nice way of seeing what would happen if I change these colors. So it reads in the colors and changes them for these. I can play around these tones. I'm just going to make the backdrop black by right clicking. That makes the both colors black, and then I'm just going to bring that down so it's basically transparent where it's black in the brush and it's letting the background through. Now I can play around with these ranges, bring up those tones a bit more if I want. That looks pretty cool. And even that one. Yeah, I quite like that. I can go to more towards blue maybe. I want to try and get rid of that brown, so what I do is I just bring this over to blue, and hopefully it kind of counters it. If I shift this to blue and sort of come in there a bit, yeah, there we go. So I got rid of that brown, makes it just grayscale. Don't see any brown at all, and that's cool because this image is then using white, light grey, medium grey, and dark grey, and black. So basically, there's 5 colours being used. So there might be a few bits of colour clash here and there. It's just so I could even tone that right down. Nothing, then I wouldn't get any issues then, but I do want a bit of highlight in there. Can play around with how much that gets through. So now that that's done, I can just click on bake. That's now baked all the brushes in that layer with those settings, and there only is that one brush. So that's done. Now let's see how it looks with the CRT effect. Pretty cool. And I'm just going to save that out. I could put in some like characters later, like ED209 and whatever else, but I'm just going to go with that. Yeah, I could also change the gradient in the background as well, do some cool stuff there. But you see it's like transparent because of the way I treated the brush. I can always go back to preview mode and bring in that black again, but the image, the brush itself isn't transparent, so I'm just going to bring in that back in. So I'll just turn that off, make that black again, and I'll go with that. So I'll just save it. So Control S is basically saving what you see as an image, I'll call this ED209 pre-process. Right, and now I've got another tool. These tools, by the way, you can find them on itch. We're just going to itch.io and look for Pixel Burner. Hi. I'm recording. Get away.
It needs blue light.
What blue light?
It needs blue light.
What? Oh yeah. So if you jump over to, let me just change that there. If you jump over to pixelburner.itch.io, that's my little site where I put a lot of stuff now. There's the bitmap fixer, this is backdrop designer, so that will cost you $3.85, between the price of a coffee and a beer, which I drink a lot of. And you've got your sprite editor. So basically it's a kind of tool set in progress for making Commodore 64 art, and it's all very useful and usable, and I use it for making art because I've got my own preferences with it. So that's where you can get that from. This is the fixer I'm going to show you, but I'm just going to run it from the actual source code here. So now that I've done that and I've saved it out, let me just double check I've saved it. Yeah, that's there, pixel art, okay, cancel that. I'm just going to escape out of this and I'm going to load up via Game Maker. You'll have the actual exe when you get this, but I'll load this up from here. It runs a wee bit slower doing it from here, but it's not a big deal. I'll lose a couple of hundred frames per second. Right, and I'm just going to grab that image, and what it's going to do is going to analyze the image and turn it into pixel. It's turning it into actual data that it can analyze, so that it can apply the restrictions of 3 colors per block plus 1 consistent background color. So it's probably going to like mess up where there's white, and it will do its best to fix it. It should detect that black is the most predominant color as the background, so that's fine. There's another way to do this as well if black is the main color. Right, so I'm just going to press O to hide, I to hide the error map and O to toggle. So you can see where that's the original. As I hold down O, and if I let go, I can see it's removed a lot of this white here. There's a few little dots here and there. Sort of a bit of noise outside, like a banger or something. Oops. Anyway, so yeah, there's a few little things being lost here. It's not a big deal, and there's not a lot of change to it, and if I look at these, there's not much difference. But the good thing is, I know that this is now a clean image, right? These are where the errors were, and it's kind of selected the best, not the best match, it's selected the majority as a replacement. So for example here, where there's white, just click that so it locks. Up here where there's white, it's looked at the majority of this block and decided this is the majority. I'm just going to swap that out for that, which is fine because that's kind of what I would do anyway. I'm going to introduce some editing tools in here so that you can actually just edit the blocks manually and run the scan again or whatever, but that's good to go. So I just press S to save that out, and what I'll call that is, I'll call that restriction fixed. Right, for some reason it's chose that. Wait a minute, I pressed the button here, so I think it's press 0. Let's do that again, S. So you can press the numbers and it will reallocate a different background color and recalculate the blocks. and I accidentally pressed a letter. I think I pressed D because it went to that light green. So as you press those, it changes the background color and therefore recalculates. For some reason it's not doing it anymore. And there we go. Okay, so for example, there I've chose did I press there 9 0? I've chose black as the main color. Right, let's try C for 12 and we get other little changes. So it still works in the same blocks, the blocks that are flooded, too much color information in them, but you might get a different result. If I make white the main color, it's more likely going to retain those whites, but that block's quite bad. Let's go for C again. See, that looks better there. And F. And there's also B. So you want to pick some of the colours that have been used, and you can press O to compare with the original. And I'll go for black again. Yeah, I think there's very not much in it. So down here's the unrestricted conversion. This is the incoming image. Right, it can be anything, it doesn't have to be the Commodore art, it can be a photograph. It will stretch it to fit that aspect ratio, and then it converts it. This is the kind of working one, and this is the result. So another method that you can use is to go to mcdraw.xyz and load your image in here. But there's an issue with this. It doesn't, at least I don't think it does. It doesn't take into account the background color, and I've yet to figure this out. I'm actually going to try something. Let's try assign this first. Now actually try this and then import our image. So let's see, here's some art that I made earlier, and accept the changes. Okay. See how it's made the background color black again? And it's made its own little kind of changes to the image. I can see a few things look different. So that's the fix there. Let's try the same with Ed209 here. It's going to look a bit different. And the dithering's not quite as good, right? It has one dither pattern. But I can load in the unfixed one, pre-process, right? And take away the dither completely. I don't want any dither. And accept changes. And that doesn't look too bad either. It's not far off. It's really not far off what I've got here. There's a few bits that are nicer. So I'd love to know what this is doing under the hood to convert stuff, because it is a wee bit on the nicer side in places. But it's very similar. Too similar to like really worry about. There's a lot of things that are pretty much the same. Apart from up here, it looks a bit nicer. So basically now that I've got this clean version, I can throw it into Photoshop. And what I like to do is put both images in to sort of compare them, but there's an issue with that, is that the image that comes out of Backdrop Designer is 4 times the size, so I just have to do image size 25% and nearest neighbor, make sure that says 320 by 200. Right, so that's now a workable size, and then I can open up the fixed one, restriction fixed, copy that, and I'll just paste it over there. Right, so this is the fixed one, right? Supposedly fixed. It's fixed, but it doesn't look as good. So I've set up the grid to be 8 by 8. You just go into preferences, grids and slices, and just set that up to 8 and then this to 1 and switch your grid on. Right, that way you get to see the actual blocks that have changed. Look how much change there is, especially up here. Right, so I only see the blocks that it had to change, which is quite a few actually, but you know, I can kind of try and fix that up a bit better. So like here, I look at the fixed one, I look at the unfixed one, there's quite a lot of different stuff. So I've got black, and it's completely like taken out some colours in there. I wonder if that's actually, I've messed it up somehow. Let me just try that again. So I'll go into the tool, and I can press F6. Right, I'm going to find the pre-processed pixel art, let it do its thing. You can press F1, F2, F3 for extra dithering, by the way. So if I press F3, it might actually, try and do more dithering. You can see a little bit up there, all this dithering that have been added. So I'll do F1, because that dithering's not healthy. It's a different algorithm from this sort of line dither, and it means that the blocks are getting a bit more busy, and that means it's hard for it to fix. So I've pressed F1 so it doesn't do any dither, it just reads it, and it's reading it all in 1-to-1, and then it analyses the blocks. So the longest thing is it reading in the file and turning all those little pixels into actual data that it can use. Don't know why it takes so long, but it just does. And it's actually looking at the file. It's not scanning the screen, which was slower. Right, so if I look at that, I mean, there is a few changes there, but let me just save that out now, because I was thinking it messed up, maybe me jumping about too much. So restriction fixed. Right, let's go back into Photoshop, and I'm just going to reload this one. I'm curious to see if this changes. That looked the same, right? Didn't see any. Usually it lets you, says update. Let's just open it. Restriction fixed, PNG. Okay, that's what's happening. Right, let's see this. Yeah, there was a lot of change there. So I think there's something wrong with the tool that I've made. So it's always good to check that over. Right. So now that I'm here, I can look to see what it's done. And instead of it swapping out for the majority, I want it to swap it out for the closest color. So if it finds like a color clash in a block, instead of making it a majority color, I want it to swap to the closest color. That's going to be the new algorithm, but it's going to take me some time to program that. So I would do something like that instead, right? It's going to be a bit better, and that's fine. All right, I'll look at these two, and I guess I'll swap for these. All right. Other things I've got something up there. So switch that on and choose that one. I can spend a bit of time fixing it up a bit, and it's really those dark ones where it's swapped for the majority but it's too much of a contrast. That's the ones I want to get rid of. Okay, in some cases that looks quite fine, but I'll just add that there. I could even just completely ignore what it's doing and just kind of like touch it up, as long as I bear in mind I'm only allowed 4 colors or 4 tones, if you like, including 3 including the background, which equals 4, right? That background color is black, it needs to stay there. So black, dark grey, mid grey I think, or light grey, dark grey, light grey, and white. Right, so I can have a look at the rest of it. I didn't like these marks up here, so let's see the way it was. Yeah, I can just like throw some of these in. Put that there and that there. It's a little higher highlight one there. I'll just bring that one back. Since we're using these there, I can bring those in, do some cool little dial thing. I'll fix that one up even though it wasn't an issue. That's what I mean, like I can easily just fix things up for the hell of it. Like here, I've got 1, 2 black, so I've got room for another tone, and I'd actually kind of make use of that just to help make that shape. So the algorithm of swapping the minimums for the maximums doesn't always work well. And I'm going to get round to doing an update to this soon. Right, so there's a wee white blob down here. Actually a couple of dark bits, I might as well make those darker. A few little light bits in here, but not too fussed about it. I'll just kind of do something like that. That's one thing I need to watch, is that this is a single pixel brush. You could always change it to like the amorphic mode. I think you change the document or something. What is it under? I don't know if you can do it after setting it up, but if I was to do a new document, you can change this to anamorphic to 1 and say OK, and then it gives you this even wider image. So you'd have to then say image size 50%, and I guess I'll just copy that out and put that in there. Why it's pasted it there. Mind of its own, so it doesn't know where it's supposed to go. Right, but now that that's it's done a bit of a boob with all these pixels as well. Let's try to. Anyway, you could probably work that way, and then that way you're getting the double pixels. But I don't mind just drawing in the both of them like that. So just have a look around, see what else is bad. So I've fixed a lot of that. Just a few little highlights down there, nothing to cry about. This one here, I'll just make that lighter. Right, so that's cool. We've done that, and I just want to save that as int09 processed. Right, I'll just double check it inside the scanner just to make sure it's fine. So I'll just run that again. So you'll be able to get this as an exe from the itch page processed. Let's do F1 so I don't get any dither. Actually, the standard dither bit it starts up with won't be affected by that palette. It's calibrated for the GangEd 2 palette, which I'll show you the tool of that in a minute. I quite like that palette because it's kind of a nice middle ground. So let that scan that. It should be fine unless I've actually made more issues with it. There we go, there's no errors here, there's no red blocks. If I press I or O, I don't see anything, so that's good. Right, so I don't have to do it, I'll just escape out of that. Now I want to turn it into actual usable art for a Commodore, so I'll just boot up GangEd 2, which is free. Just type in GangEd 2, GangEd 2 C64. Should be here somewhere. This is it here, so it's on CSDB. 2 beta 1. It's ancient, but it works. Right, so I'll fire it up, and there's one thing I need to do because it doesn't like PNGs. So that was the image I finished with. I'll just merge all the layers, and I'm just going to save as a bitmap, BMP. Yeah, that's called processed. I'll just call it BMP. Right, back into GangEd, file, load, import PC image, and then find that BMP. And all I have to do is just tell it what the background color is. Now it's going for most common, which is what the processor detected as well, so I don't have to touch anything there. It might look weird, like here it looks like there's a kind of line through that, but that's just because it's been squashed down, so don't worry about that. No dithering, and everything else just leave the same. So this using that GangEd palette. So that's why I've set everything up to this palette, is because I need to use this software, and I don't want it to. I don't want for this to sort of trip on any colors and try and swap them for something else. So I've used that palette specifically because I use this in the workflow, and it's quite a good palette. I think it's pretty accurate to what we all see. Right, so nothing to change here, but I could put other stuff in there. I could put a little logo here. Obviously I've just ripped this from photo, I can't really take all the credit, but that's the idea behind that. It would be good to work on this a bit more and make it look more awesome, but I'm just showing you the process of if you had a painted image or some artwork or anything like that, you could just use Backdrop Designer for one to get that dither, put it through the fixer, fix it up in Photoshop a little bit, check it in the fixer again, export as a BMP and bring it in here, and then just what you want to do is export that. So file, export, and to test it on an actual C64 you just want this executable PRG. You can also do other things like a koala image if you just want the data, color memory, video memory, bitmap data, blah 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 blah. There's all that other stuff, but let's go for PRG so we can preview it. Ed 209 PRG, and I'm just going to fire open the emulator. So I enjoy this kind of stuff. I used to make Commodore art back in the late 80s for fun, and it was nowhere near this fast. It used to take me days to make some decent artwork. Right, so what I want to do now is just throw that PRG in here, 809 PRG, and that should fire up. Bit of a weird name, but there you go. So that means it's got all the data it needs, and you can use that in your game. Put some sprites here of the drop your weapon, 20 seconds to comply. It could be used in a demo scene, anything like that. Now I quite like the CRT effect I've got inside Backdrop Design. I'm just going to fire that up again to show how that show you how that looks if it was on a CRT monitor, and if you did want to sort of process it that way, I'll show you how to do that now. So all I want to do is just go to a free slot, and I'm going to find the 809 processed, which is the one that I kind of finished with. and all I want to do is click this little one down the bottom right here. That basically places the image in full scale down as a plot, like that. And I just want to turn on the pixel mode and just turn the dither range like down to nothing. You can bring it up a bit to see a bit more of a CRT effect, see how it actually gets affected by that, with that CRT effect on, and also like the different pixel blends will try and have an effect there as well. But yeah, just bringing that up a bit actually boosts the CRT effect. It's kind of accidental that, but yeah, it's there. And now that that's done, I can save that as ed 209 CRT. It's going to save it as 1280 by 800 again, which is a compatible number with 320 by 200. It's 4 times. Right, and I go back into Photoshop. I'll just close all this stuff. And then open up our CRT one. And there you go, and you can kind of like look into that. You can see that I've made this kind of weird RGB effect. It's completely fake, right? But another thing you can do here is you can puppet warp this or warp it. So if you go to edit, transform, and warp, you can kind of like push some of this like down to the right. You know the way like old CRT screens have a sort of bevel to them, like a curve to them. Then you can kind of like simulate that a bit. Right, and I'll just like increase the contrast a bit more. Control U, get a bit more saturation in there. It's looking a bit more like it. And what I want to do is get a picture of a room and make it like a reflection. So I'll just go online and just find, you know, a bedroom image. Hope I don't get in too weird. Sorry, I've got my safety switched on, so I won't get any weird people. Right, I want to kind of, yeah, that's cool, right, do something like this. It's going to copy that image for the hell of it and paste that there. Let's just flip it that way for the hell of it as well and scale it up. And just imagine this is what's being reflected, right? I'll just put the opacity all the way down. That, and I'll also distort this now. I want to like cut it and paste it first. Oops, Control A, Control X, Control V, and just means that I've cropped the image. I'll do some distortion on that as well. I don't know if the perspective is right at all, but anyway, just change that to, yeah, normal. Just put the opacity down. And that's supposed to be a reflection of like the room or whatever. Now you could put some, if I change that back to that and I put a mask on it and I change the color of the mask and I put a gradient in the mask like this one, change that to black and white and let's make it like a fall off like that, invert it so we get more reflection at the edges. Turn off this little anchor so that we can basically push that reflection to the edge. It's way too much still, but let's also distort this a bit more. It's completely pointless me adding this, but it's just for fun. Let's just bring the opacity down. Not too far off, right? And then you could put that on a monitor or whatever, 3D model of a monitor. Put some fake shine in. So I'll just paint with solid white. Like if there was a window or something. I'm just doing some like pretend stuff here. It's not accurate. I'm not a RTX card or anything like that. If only. Get a Elon Musk RTX chip installed and I'll be much more accurate with my reflections, but there it goes, a window. Scale that down and move it up to the corner as you do it. That's like perfectly accurate reflection there. That looks pretty dumb actually. There you go. Now I do whatever I want with that image and increase the saturation a bit. Let's increase the contrast. That looks pretty nifty. So there you go. That is how you can process your Commodore style art to pixels and make it look cool. Whatever art you've got, throw it into Backdrop Designer, mess with the dithering, you know, and jump through some hoops to get that working right. There might be other tools that you can use to fix the color restrictions, like GangEd. If you bring it straight in there, I found that was a pain in the ass, so that's why I ended up developing a tool. Why was that a pain in the ass? I don't know, fiddly to use. Yeah, you can bring an image in. Oh yeah, and it only uses bitmaps as well. Just, you know, the dithering effect is that one thing that's pretty cool. You can bring in any image, so a photograph, for example. Here's a little rose picture that I took. Just bring that in. It's a very high resolution image. It's going to take a while. Yeah, but from that to this, it looks pretty badass. I want this on a t-shirt now, apart from the reflection. That undo actually. I don't actually like the reflection, to be honest. I'm just ramping up the contrast of that. It's pretty cool. Yeah, because this sort of distortion helps it a bit. Let's do a little bit of filter blur. Gaussian blur, just a tiny bit. And then you make that like additive. Bring that down a bit, and that just helps like that light source. If there was a light source in your TV, that's visible, and Control L just to really kind of push and pull that a bit more. That's also pretty cool. I like that a lot. And look how it all just bleeds together. Might want to sort of bring the darks down a bit and bring that one up. I don't want to lose the little pixels that you can see on black. That's quite nice to see. Yeah, more or less the same. So yeah, so there's a photograph. Now to see the photo, you just basically switch that to the left, right, and you get the original. I'm just going to do Control Backspace to clear that. There's a little photograph. I took turn off 4 scale so I can scale that up. Can rotate that round a bit. Make a cool little layout there. So that's a photograph of a little rose in our garden. I put a little backplate behind it, and I just switch in to pixel mode. Can turn off that CRT, increase the dither range, and the pixel blending, and get something that looks kind of nice. There's also all your different dither types. This all just runs in real time. You don't have to wait for this. You know, and it's just the only thing that this won't do is the restriction stuff, because it takes too long. It has to scan the image, has to turn all the pixels into data so it can analyze the data properly. So I don't know if I'll ever integrate it, because this tool was never designed to do Commodore art. It was just when I started throwing in these pixel modes, like you've got different pixel shaders, and I'd rather focus on brushes than start pissing about with too much pixel stuff. There's already enough here, to be honest. So yeah, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoy using Backdrop Designer. It's $3.79 or something. Like, please don't cry about the price. I spent months on it, and $3.85. There you go. Good for Commodore art. Not just that, it's good for doing all sorts of art. I've got some nice brushes in there that look like oil paint. I got some shape brushes. You can make your own brushes. You can bring your brushes in from not your brushes from Photoshop, but you bring images in that are like stamps, and you stamp them down. You can an image that you've created in Photoshop, bring it in, put it through the pixel processors, and see how it looks. And just try different stuff with it. And it's just another tool to see how your work looks. So there we go. That's using the actual brushes. And if we go to the right here, that's kind of like a conversion. Well, that is a conversion, but I've changed the gradient in the sky, and I didn't add the thing. Like, you can take away stuff quite easily. It's just all stamps. There's loads of stamp data. Plenty of videos on that on YouTube through the itch page to give you an idea how that works. And that's it. Thanks for watching the stream. I'll put this on YouTube if you've missed it or you want to see the start, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.